Yeah, I think you would understand any presentation using the word EBITDA if every time you saw that word, you just substituted the phrase bullshit earnings.
If EBITDA is bullshit earnings, then adjusted EBITDA must be shit earnings. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. This is Pradeep and you're watching Vlog of Note. In this video, we're going to tell you what is EBITDA and why they hate it so much. Let's get started. So first of all, usual disclaimer here, I'm not a SEBI registered investment advisor or a certified financial planner. If you want to make any investments, you should do your own market research. I'm just a person who has made a reasonable amount of money by investing in the stock market. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's divide this video up into 3 parts. The first part, we're going to talk about what is EBITDA. In the second part, we're going to talk about why Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett hate it so much. And the third part of this video, we're going to find out what metric they prefer to look at when it comes to earnings. If you want to know what that is, stick around till the end of this video. Now let's jump in. In the first part of this video, we're going to talk about what is EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It was invented, concocted as it were, by John Malone in the 1970s, a billionaire American, and it was basically designed for 3 reasons. The first one is because of scale. You see, he was buying these smaller communications companies in order to combine them into a larger telecommunications inc. And he didn't want investors to focus on things like depreciation. That's why he invented EBITDA. The second reason is because of taxes. He was really good at avoiding taxes and therefore he thought that earnings should be declared without considering taxes. And the third reason was because he thought it was a cash flow proxy. It totally is not. He just wanted Wall Street to focus on that metric. It worked because he ended up selling Telecommunications Inc. to AT&T for $48 billion. Anyway, how is EBITDA calculated? Earnings, you take the income of a company and then add back in interest on loan, taxes and depreciation on assets and amortization of things like goodwill, and you arrive at EBITDA. Here's an example I came across recently, PB Fintech. It's a new age technology company in India. Nothing against them, I just happened to come across their earnings for Q3 of FY 2023. They control Policy Bazaar, which controls 93% of the Indian online insurance market. But anyway, in their recent earnings, they said that they had an adjusted EBITDA profit of 26 crores. Now, if you compare that to an adjusted EBITDA loss last year, same quarter, of 41 crores, you think the company has done pretty well. Newbie investors might be fooled by this, and I think they were because the share price of that company rose by 3% the very next day after their results. If you think 3% is not that big, it's about 600 crores of their market capitalization increase, and that's why this company is playing around with the numbers, and that's why Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett hate that metric. In the second part of this video, we're going to take a detailed look at why Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger hate EBITDA. The fact is, it is not a standard metric. It is not part of GAAP or generally accepted accounting principles or IFRS or International Financial Reporting Standards, and companies can basically do whatever they please when it comes to EBITDA. For example, Buffett and Munger have spoken about 3 specific areas that companies play around a little bit too much when it comes to EBITDA. The first one is depreciation. All assets do depreciate and depreciation must be factored into the earnings of a company because at some point of time you're going to have to replace those assets. In fact, Warren Buffett calls it a reverse float because the money goes out first and then the expense is taken later over a period of time. Secondly, we come to goodwill. Now, goodwill is the difference between the purchase value and the face value of the assets of a company. It sits on the balance sheet of a company and it has to be amortized or charged off over a period of time. It's a little bit more murky than depreciation because in 2001, they said that you don't have to amortize goodwill. And then in 2014, they said you have the option, but you totally should. Anyway, I think goodwill must be amortized. Take the example of a company whose share price has run up quite a bit. They decide to take advantage and make an acquisition, but because their share price has gone to their head, they make an incorrect valuation of their acquisition target and end up paying way too much. Now, that difference between the purchase value and the face value is goodwill. It's sitting on that company's balance sheet and it's just way too high because eventually reality will hit and that company has to take a write down. When they take a write-down because they have not amortized that goodwill, newbie investors can get scared. Take the example of in 2002, AOL Time Warner took a $54 billion write-down of their acquisition of Yahoo because Yahoo obviously wasn't worth that much and their share price had tanked over 37% over the preceding months. The third issue that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have with EBITDA is stock options. In 1992, Warren Buffett wrote a letter where he railed against stock options. These are given to high-paid executives at the company and are basically in lieu of cash salary. Unfortunately, most companies try to add these back into their earnings. Take the example of Yelp, an online reviews platform. In the fourth quarter of 2020, they had reported earnings of only $17.5 million. Then they decided to add back in non-cash items and arrived at an EBITDA of $30.5 million, almost 50% above. But they weren't done there. They went ahead and added back in a further $30.5 million in terms of stock-based compensation and arrived at a magical adjusted EBITDA of $61 million, almost 3 times higher than their actual reported income. That's why Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger really hate EBITDA. In the third part of this video, let's look at the metric that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have put forward as the anti-EBITDA. In his 1986 letter, he talks about his metric called owner's earnings. It is the cash that the owner or the shareholders of the company can take out of that business after accounting for capital expenditures and incremental working capital requirements. Here's how it is calculated. You take the reported earnings of a company and then add back in non-cash items. You arrive at operating cash flow and then you subtract from it the capital expenditure and incremental working capital requirements. You arrive at owner's earnings. Here's an example from Seeking Alpha. I will link to it in the description right next to our like button from 2017. They take a look at the owner's earnings per share of Walmart in 2017. And if you do the calculation, you'll find that the owner's earnings per share is $4.89 versus a reported earnings of only $4.38. If you had bought the stock of Walmart in 2017 when the owner's earnings per share were higher than the reported earnings per share, you would have made 80% on your money over the last 5 years. Not bad at all. So there you have it. You have EBITDA, you have why Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger hate EBITDA, and you have owner's earnings, their preferred metric. If you have your own pet metric, please drop it in the comment section down below. I would love for our community to hear about it. As always, please go over to YouTube, subscribe to the Vlog of Note channel, ring that notification bell so that you never miss a video, and I will see you guys in the next episode.